This is a Salt City Hoops podcast because we have soon basketball sort of stuff to talk about. The Utah Jazz are getting ready to start their preseason. We, full disclosure, are recording this before a single second of preseason basketball. I don't know when you, the fine listener, are listening to it, and obviously this series will extend into the preseason. But for this first batch of players we're going to preview, we're operating a little bit without a net and without knowing what has happened, what might have happened by the time you consume these words heading into your ear holes. So to do that, we're gonna as we did last year, we're gonna chunk the roster. We're gonna take 5 players at a time, and we've kind of spread out the interesting players that will have a lot to say about, with the less interesting players that it might be a short conversation. And we're going to see if we can get through the roster here in 3 episodes, and then give you some other fun content as the regular season approaches. The guy whose brainchild all of this is the guy sitting across from me in the Mile High City. Denver, Colorado is the home of Mark Russell Pereira. How you doing, Mark?
I'm great. I For the first time, I was thinking about taking my 3 kids who are ages 6 and under to a Denver Nuggets preseason game, because prices are just too much, and no, even age at that age they're not actually interested in the basketball anyways. And so I saw that they had a home preseason game, and my wife was out of town, so it was going to be like, haha, all the boys get to stay up late and do whatever. And then as I was kept looking and struggling to find the tickets, I realized that they were playing in San Diego as their home game, and I
Well,
lost my
there you go.
mind. I said I can't do anything right. So I'm here in Denver, but as always, lifelong Utah Jazz fan, and I love talking about preseason. What could this team be, especially if when you have a rebuilding team? What's funny is when you have a breakdown of a roster where on a successful team like the Jazz have had not too far away, the random second round picks or end of the roster players or undrafted free agents carry a lot of intrigue, but they're not important, so you kind of talk about them for a couple minutes and move on. And here, as you kind of previewed, unlike last year where we did have some things to say about where John Collins or Colin Sexton can fit on the team in the future and for right now, there just isn't a whole lot to say about Yusuf Nurkic and his company's future in the franchise. So we have a lot more to talk about. We have 3 new additions on the team, rookies. I don't know how much we'll get into the two-way guys like John Tonje and Elijah Harkless, but at least the 15 active roster players where all these first round picks and a couple of the second round picks, they're all going to play active minutes, and we have a lot to say about them, including our 2 bridge players, Walker Kessler and Lowry Markkinen. So just breaking it up for you, like, hey, there's going to be some of the sexier names on each one of these little previews, and if you're wondering what Mark and Dan's thoughts are on Yusuf Nurkic and Kyle Anderson, we're going to give them to you because like they are going to play, and I think we have to do justice to you, the listener or the viewer, saying, hey, what I don't know anything about Yusuf Nurkic. Who is he, and what should I be expecting of him? Um, I think that's valuable information for the Jazz fan to know. Yeah, I don't have a natural conclusion to that, but I'm very excited to, with the names we have on the docket today. So who do we have?
It works. It works. I'm Dan Clayton, by the way. I forgot to say that. I'm also part of Salt City Hoops, and excited to bring you this content and lots of fun other stuff as the preseason and season roll along. So today we're going to talk about, as Mark said, we're going to split up some of the sexy names, and then that also means by definition we're going to spend some time crossing off some of the less sexy names off of our list of dudes to talk about. So on the sexy end of the spectrum, some young guys. Ace Bailey, one of the most exciting young additions to the Jazz in a long time. Isaiah Collier, who had a nice rookie season. Brice Sensabaugh, who exploded in his second year. And then we're going to end on a couple of the new veterans, Kyle Anderson and Kevin Love, who both arrived via trade. Everyone assumed they'd be buyout candidates or flipped or, sent to Guam or whatever. But here they are wearing Jazz threads and getting ready to play Jazz basketball. So those are the 5 we're going to talk about. And Mark, just to get right to it, you were telling me before we got on that everything you see from Ace Bailey right now, every shred of like practice scrimmage video is getting you excited. So let's just jump in on Ace. What are you so excited about with Ace?
I've said it a million times this offseason on how excited I am for him, and I think he's a star. I just have a lot of qualitative belief in him on what I'm seeing, going back and looking at his Rutgers tape and how he was getting those buckets and the points of negativity around Ace Bailey's college game. Now that we've seen a couple summer league games and we've frankly just listened to the guy talk a little bit more unfiltered way, when he's saying in interviews like, "Oh, nothing is handed to you. I got to do everything on the court. I got to block shots. I have to pass." And those are like the first two basketball traits that come out of his mouth. And then you go back and you watch this Rutgers tape, and you're watching just like Division II level front court, and he's kind of playing with Dylan Harper, who's not a great shooter, and they're kind of trying to do things individually and by themselves. And he was always, I just identified that this was a player that was simply just always getting to his spots. Wherever he wanted to go, he got there and frequently was able to get a rising shot over somebody or have some sort of good opportunity to shoot. And I just think like that is the unmolded shot maker at his size and athleticism that you can immediately say, do these things specifically, and you'll have free reign of the court, and you're going to be way more open. You're going to play with Lowry Markkanen. And yeah, Isaiah Collier, Keontae George, Walt Clayton, whomever, they're not the league's best point guards. In fact, I saw something that I agree with where we have the 29th best starting point guard lineup in the NBA, but there's still going to be professional level point guard play alongside also professional level front court play. I just think the entire environment around Ace is from what he did at Rutgers is now completely misconstrued. And my qualitative eye test type of things is you just watch how he moves on the basketball court, and he just has this is totally, we tend to be very analytical on this show. Rightfully so. I mean, but without on-court production, which I think we'll be highly critical of all these young players throughout the season. You won't hear us cut corners on that. But right now, as you kind of look at, well, what do we have to work with? He just has this movement style that is effortless and quick and fast and athletic with the ball in his hands. Not just like, oh, he's kind of this athlete that can run and jump high like a Taylor Hendricks who is very scintillating for other reasons. I think this is a player who does not reduce these athletic gifts that he has with the basketball in his hands. So I think he's a star. And when I think about the best outcome for him, when we think about like the best outcome for these players that we're going to talk about, obviously you could always have a huge blow up. Never saw it. We've never seen this before. Who could have possibly seen this coming? Outcome for him, for these players. But for Ace Bailey, I'm looking at Carmelo Anthony's rookie year. I'm looking at 21 points a game, 43% shooting from the field, like 32% from 3-point range. The one thing we remember Carmelo Anthony for is not only did he finish second to LeBron James in Rookie of the Year voting, but he was arguably the best player on a Denver Nuggets team that made the playoffs. The Utah Jazz are not making the playoffs this year. And that Nuggets team, yes, their leader was the professor Andre Miller, but they had the likes of Nene and old Marcus Camby, Chris Anderson as a mercurial backup, and they didn't have a whole lot of players on that team, and Carmelo Anthony gets that team 43 wins. And so it's less about the wins and losses, and he got a bunch of first-team Rookie of the Year votes because of it, right? But more, he was an immediate positive impact for a top 10 offense in the NBA. And I think Ace Bailey has that immediate impact ability to him. And that's what I'm excited about.
Yeah. So Mark's saying best case scenario, because one of the things we'll try to stick to as we move through these 5 players and the 10 that follow, although don't hold us to this because we also might move quicker or slower through some. But broadly speaking, we kind of want to hit on each player's best and worst outcomes, and then just sort of what Mark and I are expecting to see from those guys this season, and then some lineups and or combinations that we're most intrigued to see them operate in. Yeah, I think when I say best case and worst case, and this is probably a question of degrees, right? Because like you're right, I don't think there's a reason he couldn't have a Carmelo type rookie season. that's probably like a 95% best case scenario for a rookie year for this kid. Usually, like, I don't know, at both ends, I tend to think about like what's the 10% and the 90%, or maybe even what's the 15 and the 85, just because the very best bet, like, you know, the like it's possible that he just shows up and he's Michael Jordan from day one, and it's possible that he gets abducted by aliens tomorrow and we never hear from him again. So, like, I'm being glib, obviously, but I guess I'm just saying I hadn't really thought about like what a 21-7-6 rookie season would be. I'm working from memory. I don't actually know that those are Melo's stats. Um, you know, I think the guys that I have kind of compared him to in a long-term sense, these other like 6'8", toolsy, very fluid, kind of they're wings, but they're big bodied, they're long, but guard skills. A lot of them didn't have great rookie seasons, and I think that's okay. But in terms of a best case scenario, yeah, I think a best case scenario without putting a stat projection on it is just that, like, he's a guy who is a no-brainer for first team all rookie. If he's a guy who's a no-brainer for first team all rookie, then that means that whether it's, you know, I don't care necessarily if he scores 17 or 21, or if he gets 8 rebounds a game or 6 rebounds a game, or if he shoots 34% from three or 39% from three. Being first team all rookie in this class, especially with some of the guys that have been talked about for years in this class, I think would just mean that something special has happened, and that something fun has happened, and that now the Jazz, with him and Markkanen, assuming Markkanen is, you know, still with the Jazz at whatever point we're talking about, that with him and Markkanen, and still another good draft pick to come in all likelihood, that the Jazz are starting to kind of have an outline of what their next core can look like. And then the worst case scenario, and again, there's lots of worst case scenarios.
Before you build on to worst case scenario and where this could all go wrong, because I certainly have some, you know, I'm able to temper my own Kool-Aid quite a bit. I think the Carmelo Anthony thing is exactly how you were kind of pointing out, like the 90th percentile outcome to the 95th percentile outcome. I completely agree with you.
Yeah.
Because the Carmelo Anthony first team all rookie conversation is not no brainer all first team rookie. It's, oh my God. Like this is Hall of Fame trajectory. We know this from day one. And I see that possibility because I'm super high on him. And I think that is going to be tempered by the fact that I think Jazz fans are going to have to be prepared, I think, in the first 3 months especially, for 16-minute Ace Bailey nights, where for whatever reason he hasn't picked up on something, his defense is atrocious, can't figure something out. He's been playing great, but on a given night in a given matchup, he doesn't have it. Like it's not working. It's a close game, and he gets benched for an entire fourth quarter or something like that. Foul trouble. Who knows if he ends up having a penchant for fouls or something like that. Those 16-minute random nights are going to be interspersed between, hey, he played 38 minutes and he's never tired, and he shot 48% today, and he shot 6 threes, and like we just couldn't keep him off the floor. That's going to be what a rookie season is like. Very, very up and down roller coaster. And for better or worse, at his position, there are a few options that Will Hardy can go with instead. And, you know, Brice, Sensabaugh, and Lauri Markkanen are totally different players, but they are both credible threes. And Sensabaugh at times has played a small ball 4, which is slightly out of position for him, admittedly. But Taylor Hendricks is back, right? There are ways that Hardy can craft lineups without Ace Bailey on the floor, and yet we can still finish the season, even if he is up and down, saying, oh yeah, first team all rookie, that's incredible. And I think in a different way of like what that 90th percentile outcome looks like for Ace, he's currently plus 1,500 to win Rookie of the Year, which is by all metrics considered a long shot. Trey Johnson is firmly rated ahead of him as far as the Vegas odds. Cooper Flagg is minus 200 or minus 300 depending on where you're looking. Those are preposterous offensive numbers to me. that like Cooper Flag should not be minus anything to win Rookie of the Year. And I can't think of a world in which I'd prefer to have Trey Johnson over Ace Bailey, even given the team constructs for both the Wizards and the Jazz. I think Ace Bailey and Dylan Harper for the Spurs has a little bit less of a, if he could have a strong rookie season, but he's battling with Stephon Castle and De'Aaron Fox for point guard, number getting, get the stats to get Rookie of the Year. And I just think Ace Bailey is going to give as much of a leash as possible to be very credibly the Rookie of the Year. I know David Locke recorded a podcast that I haven't listened to by the time we're talking about this, where the premise of, I guess, his discussion was, hey, here's how he gets Rookie of the Year. It's all going to be based on minutes and points. And I think it's absolutely there for them. And if we can walk away saying that dude credibly fought Cooper Flag for Rookie of the Year, and at one point in the year we thought he was the Rookie of the Year, that's really cool.
Sure. Yeah. No, I totally with you. There have been 10 rookies this century who in their rookie campaign exceeded 20 points per game. And most of them barely exceeded it. I mean, Blake and Zion, 22.5. Victor Wembanyama, 21.4. Luka, 21.2. You mentioned Carmelo, 21 even. And then LeBron, Donovan Mitchell, KD, Joel Embiid, and Tyreek Evans, the which one of these things is not like the other off of this list.
I like Tyreek Evans.
No, I mean, me too. But, those are like 9 really crazy all-NBA names and Tyreek Evans. So anyway, those last 5 guys I named averaged between 20.1 and 20.9. So anyway, those are the 10 guys who have done it. I don't care what Ace Bailey averages necessarily. In fact, if we zoom back out to like career level best case scenario, a lot of people have said, hey, maybe this guy's Paul George. I would be thrilled if he were Paul George. Paul George is a 6-time All-NBA player. Paul George is a rookie, averaged 7.8 points per game. Some people have mentioned that maybe he's T-Mac, a more offensive-only version of that 6'8 wing prototype. That would be amazing. He was a 7-time All-NBA. T-Mac averaged 7 even as a rookie. I'd even be okay. Rashard Lewis is a name that's come up as like a middle, like a 60%. And Rashard Lewis averaged, what did Rashard Lewis average as a rookie? 2.4 points per game, although that's kind of because he barely played. So anyway, point being, I'm not super duper looking at this through the lens of what does he average.
Yeah, I think and I'm prepared to be a little disappointed night to night. I am simply looking at this as like just preposterously high on what I think is possible, more than I did at the time we selected him. At the time we selected him, I was like, okay, score first wing. Okay, we'll see where this one turns out. And then everything we hear from him and every little bit, I dissect a little bit more about how he's going about his business and how he performed it. And frankly, again, watching the Summer League tape for the 9th time just has me thinking very much about like the long-term successful outcome here that could actually be a little bit more immediate than we thought. But my optimism for Ace absolutely is not going to lead into disappointment if we finish the month of November and he's averaging 5 points a game. Like it's very much he's 19, very much a long-term thing. If I'm going to bet a little bit of a long shot on something, yeah, Ace Bailey Rookie of the Year at plus 1,500, that's way more in play than anyone's, I think the national media is picking up on, and I'm in on it.
Sure.
Where can it go wrong, Mr. Clayton?
I was gonna make you answer that first.
Okay, again, I'll take it. Let me couch my optimism with a very rational approach to where this could all go wrong. And yeah, I can absolutely dive into that right away. And that is all of the bad habits we saw at Rutgers just don't go away. Like he is unable to perform in a team construct where he's given the basketball and it's just an immediate black hole where he's got 2 moves that he can do and that's all he's going to do, and he can't understand how to operate outside of that construct. And if he doesn't have the ball in his hands, he kind of operates how Cody Williams did last year, like run to the corner and just stand there and not do anything, because he's kind of waiting for Keontae to do something, or Lowry Markkinen is the focal point for XYZ, and he doesn't know how to impose assertiveness without being a known black hole by his teammates. Because, yeah, you can be assertive on getting the basketball and everything, but guys like Keontae George are just going to wave you off if they know that they're never going to get the ball back. And that's how you lead into being a 12-minute constant. Like, I think he's going to start. We'll talk about lineups in a minute. But even if he doesn't start, we're looking at him to relying on him for 25, 30 minutes a game. We could, and just like last year with Cody Williams started, like at the start of the season last year, he was getting these interesting assignments and getting put through the fire a little bit. And then in 3 weeks, we realized like this isn't a thing. This shouldn't happen. I'm worried about Ace from an offensive perspective on that. His defense will be terrible. We'll kind of decipher how terrible it's going to be. He's shown in Summer League that he's got the capability to do the wow things, which is interesting, and he gives a shit about doing the wow things. But offensively, if he goes an entire season without understanding how to manipulate his assertiveness and desire to score with how NBA basketball is run, we're looking at a very disappointing 5 points per game, 6-7 points per game kind of season, on terrible shooting numbers as well. Like, that's where it goes wrong.
Yeah, I think what I'm most worried about, honestly, is like timidity. And that's why one of the encouraging things to me coming out of camp has just been the persistent message that people want Ace to mess up. They want Ace to try stuff. They want, like one of my favorite shows ever, they have a thing that they have a joke about, like, yeah, he screwed up, but like he really went for it. Like there was that guy shaped hole in the wall where he screwed up. And that's kind of what I want to see from Ace. Like, in fact, I would compare that a little bit to the next guy we're going to talk about. Like Isaiah Collier as a rookie was always either spectacular or like WTF, like what's going on here. And I think that's okay. Like, I think the guys who are unafraid to impact the game in all those ways, Donovan Mitchell, former Jazz rookie Donovan Mitchell was on that list of special rookie scorers that I just rattled off. One of 10 guys this century to average 20 plus as a rookie, to average more than 20, I should say, as a rookie. And he did it because he was given runway, right? He did it because he got to a team that just needed someone to take 25 possessions a night, and he did. And so that's what I'm most excited to see from Ace is just try shit. It's okay. It'll go badly sometimes. But what I don't want to see is like Cody Williams. What was bad about Cody Williams' first 2 months was not, I saw people posting stuff like, oh, no player that ever started his career with this box plus minus ever. And that's fine. We can play those games. I do those kind of stat searches too. They're fun to do. What was most concerning about Cody Williams' start is that he was petrified to touch the basketball, be asked to touch the basketball, be asked to be around people who were touching basketballs. Like, that is what I don't want to see from Ace Bailey. I want to see him involved and bold. And as long as there's no like, hey, I'm just going to go stand in the corner for 6 straight possessions because like, I'm not sure about myself in this environment, that will worry me more than any stat I could cite. Or, if he shoots 28% from 3, I don't, go ahead, shoot 28% from 3 as a rookie. If it's because you're being bold and you're shot hunting and you're, living at the edge of your comfort zone.
Yeah. The piece of that gets me excited also. I mean, there's all this excitement. We're even trying to talk about negatives and we're sitting here being excited about him. Is you don't want to read too much into it, but there's something about his personality that screams, if I screw up, I want to talk to people about it. I want to talk to my coaches about it. I want to talk to my teammates about it. I might even talk to the media more than I should about it. Like he's just got this jovial approach to basketball that says, it's just basketball. I'm here to play and have fun. He unlike Cody Williams being petrified or not, whatever he was, his attitude of standing in the corner. It seems like Ace Bailey wants to play basketball for the sake of playing basketball, and so
Yeah.
I really don't think timidity is like in his DNA. I worry if he will be forced to not touch the basketball if
By virtue of who his teammates are.
and if the coaches feel like he isn't figuring it out. Like, you're asking for the
Yeah.
ball in all the worst spots, and then when you get the ball, you do very bad things with it. Like, you need more to learn on the mental side of things before we can trust you to be that happy go play basketball guy.
Yeah. No, I hear all of that. I do think, I'll move us along because we're like a half hour into this and we're still on guy number one. But yeah, I totally agree with that. And again, I'm thrilled to see an Ace Bailey making mistakes all year. I made you go first on worst case scenario. I'll go first on bold predictions and what we expect to see.
Could be
I
either
do.
or, by the way. Like, it's more like,
Okay.
hey, what is a
Open it.
prediction you have for him? It could be your middle of the road or some sort of wild thing that perhaps we're not considering.
I'll actually go kind of bold on this. This is one of those things that I'm going to say out loud, even though I don't 100% know if I'm right. Um, the part I'm pretty confident about, it goes back to what you mentioned, that you think he'll start. I think he'll start at the start of the season, and I hope he'll start. I think that that's the right thing, to put him next to a Lowry, to put him next to a Walker Kessler. You know, maybe it's Hendricks, maybe it's whatever. I think that that's the right thing to do. My bold prediction is, I actually think Ace Bailey will start every game he plays for the Jazz this year. I think even though they'll be in full-blown experimental mode at different points of the season, I think there's just I think he's the variable that they want in all of those experiences, in all of those experiments, and therefore I think we're going to see him play a lot of basketball. I don't, he'll also have some nights where he just maybe doesn't have it, and so he doesn't get as much burn in a total minutes standpoint. But I bet he'll start. And again, I 83% believe this statement. My bold prediction is that he'll start every game he plays this season.
Yeah, I love that. It also matters for organizational clout and everything. And if things all go poorly and he's having just a bad season the whole way around, you could just Michael Carter Williams it and just say, like, look, you're gonna put up a bunch of counting stats, and we'll reevaluate your stature with the organization in the following summer. But, like, you'll have a bunch of counting stats and somebody will like it. It's that sort of approach will be out there even if he's having a bad season. It's just, no, you are going to be our 6'10", 6'9" player there. This is less of like a what I think will, because I'm too far in the clouds to give a reasonable prediction on what I think will happen. But I think my plus 1,500 rookie of the year thoughts are going to be that I think Ace Bailey will have a stunning amount of assists per game. Or per 36 or per minutes. I think everyone's kind of looking at him as like 0.8 assists per game guy. And I think you're going to finish the season with 2.8, 3.0, 3.2 assists per game, because I do think he's going to play over 32 minutes. And I think, unlike my many, many, many well-documented criticisms of Lowry Markkanen, I think, regardless of what the point guard play kind of turns out, because I believe in Ace and what he'll do, he is still going to be a player that in certain situations, on the middle of a random day in January, March, whatever, you can just say, hey, 13, 15, 20 possessions, Ace, can you just take the basketball and go do something? And unlike Lowry, I preface that by mentioning Lowry and implicating him, I still don't think Lowry is good at the entire world of basketball options are available to him when he has the ball and the team is looking at him, asking him to help. I think Ace has a little bit more passing juice than Lowry ever will have. And I think some of those, unlike Lowry, we're begging him to average more than an assist per game. I think Ace is actually going to average around high 2, low 3s assists. And everyone's going to look at the stats matched up to Cooper Flagg at the end of the year and say, actually, I think Ace Bailey has had a better season. And if Ace Bailey is only averaging 0.8 assists, I don't think you can make that argument. If it's around 3, I think you can. So that's my bold prediction, is I think Ace's passing numbers are going to be way higher than people think.
Yeah. Yeah, like 16-6-3 is a respectable, or let's say he sniffs the 20 level or whatever. Like, yeah, 19-5-3, or 18-7-4. Those are real ass numbers from a rookie. So I like that. What's your lineup you want to see Ace in?
So I don't think they'll start it this way because I think they're going to keep Taylor Hendricks a little bit on ice to start the year and perhaps even all the way until January, February. I think Taylor Hendricks is going to force his way into the starting lineup at some point where everyone just goes, shit, man, even if he's on a 25 minute limit or whatever, he's part of every closing lineup. And so if I think Hendricks, and this is, we'll talk about this on another show, if Hendricks forces his way into the closing lineup, I want to see some sort of Houston Rockets esque massive lineup of Ace Bailey and Taylor Hendricks playing the 2-3, obviously with Lowry Markin and Walker Kessler playing the 4-5, and not to invoke like, okay, Kevin Durant playing shooting guard for the PJ Carlesmo Supersonics. But I am kind of a little bit in saying the way we get Ace Bailey on the floor is to play the 2 guard. And in a way, because we have to have these other 3 guys out there, he's so fast and agile that I just don't think it's a problem. I don't think Kevin Durant can do that anymore, which is why the Houston lineups without Van Vliet are kind of a weird problem. But I think he can do that now. So want to see him and Hendricks kind of playing together, not at the 3-4, but in some sort of 2-3 combo. Like if Kessler's replaced by Nurkic or something like that, and you have Lowry Markkinen out there. It's those 3 guys, actually. Hendricks, Markkinen, and Bailey. I want to see them together.
Okay, that is bullcrap because that was my answer. Was those you ended where I was going to start, which is, to me, it's again, if Ace Bailey signals this year, whatever that means, if he's capable this season of signaling that he's on a trajectory of Rashard Lewis or better, or let's even say like Michael Porter Jr. or better. No, I think it probably needs to be Rashard Lewis level or better, because MPJ is like the 3rd or 4th best guy on a title team. I think Ace needs to be a little better than that. If Ace signals that he's on like I'm going to make a couple all-star teams at some point in my career type of trajectory, then he and Markkinen become 2/3 of your future core, and then the other third comes next June, right? So I think I'm fascinated to see Ace and Lowry and what that chemistry looks like. Both of those guys are, in the best versions of themselves. They are kind of apositional. Both of those guys are guys that it doesn't really matter what you call them. It matters what they carry out for you on a basketball court, and then you slot other pieces around them based on what you need to defend and whatever. And to me, that's really fascinating. And Hendricks is the guy that I most want to see, the interplay with. I kind of, the guard mess is a whole other thing, and I'm sort of I have a thing half written about that, and I'm sure we'll talk about it more when we get to Isaiah and eventually when we get to Key and Clayton. Center. It just so happens that the Jazz only really have one center who's kind of interesting in a long-term set. I mean, flips whatever, flips a forward center, but so really, like, by definition, most of these like most interesting lineups are going to include Kessler, because like who else are they going to include? Like Kevin Love on his 47th birthday or Yusuf Nurkic. So anyway, guard and center aside, to me the most interesting thing is going to be seeing those 3 dudes kind of do it together and see what that looks like. And hopefully Hendricks has the type of bounce back and has enough health to where we can see that for some not insignificant number of minutes every night.
Very excited to talk about him in the next episode for sure.
Well, let's talk about our next guy then, because as predicted, as forecast, this was on purpose, ladies and gentlemen. We knew that we were going to spend more time on the names up front, and by the time we're at Kyle Anderson and Kevin Love, will be a little bit more terse, which is okay. That's by design. Our second guy is Isaiah Collier. We talked about him a little along the way. And, to me, Mark, what's interesting about Collier, it's really tough to talk about Collier or Key or Walter Clayton Jr. in a vacuum. Because, the Jazz The Jazz obviously have prioritized long wings with their lottery picks in the last three drafts, and then the second time they've been on the clock, each time they've taken a guard, and they're very different guards, but also there are 48 minutes available at point guard. And, there's a few more available at shooting guard. I think a couple of these guys can credibly play the two and maybe even should play the two more often. But, there's somewhere between 48 and 96 minutes for those three players to split up. And it's just hard not to feel like someone is going to like someone's going to draw the short straw here. And that's not to say that they can't all three play, but someone's going to be playing like 16 minutes a night instead of 26 minutes a night. And actually, I'm kind of going out of order here, but that's kind of my worst case for all three of the guards. So talking about Isaiah's best case and worst case, the worst case is just that he and Walt Clayton Jr. are better, and that he finds himself kind of looking up at them, and he's just kind of on the edge of the rotation or out of the rotation, and he just kind of feels less relevant, 3 months from now. I don't mean to start with the negative. I'm excited about Isaiah. I think he did a lot of things really, really well. I loved his rookie season. But that's kind of at the low end, like what he could be facing just by virtue of the fact that, like, none of these three guards are proven at all in the sense of being like a starter level NBA guard. Go ahead. I can tell you want to jump in here.
Well, I'm just very glad that you didn't bring up 3-point shooting, because I think it's the easiest and dumbest thing to talk about, and dumbest is too strong. It's an actual weakness of Isaiah Collier that he can't quite shoot 3-pointers right now. But I think that as that becomes a skill that, again, this is going to be his age 21 season. He's a young guy. If that becomes a skill that he learns later on, like Derek White was an awful 3-point shooter to start his career. Like, we talk about these non-shooting young players eventually figuring out shooting, because we've seen it a lot in the NBA. That it is something that can be learned with appropriate coaching. And even if he's shaped like a block and doesn't exactly have like the cleanest, smoothest Ace Bailey shooting stroke, it's not like a broken jumper looking thing where he's shooting it from the hip or whatever, and we have to completely reorient his mechanics. But the reason I'm glad you didn't mention it is because I think there are a lot of other things where you're pointing out these are important point guard things for how you are going to become a professional. And I don't think Isaiah Collier suddenly become a third. If Isaiah Collier somehow becomes a 32, 33, 34% 3-point shooter this year, that is not the biggest problem that he had last year. His biggest problem was preposterous over 20% turnover rate, which, like, and then you think about, like, okay, Mark, you just said a number and something that ended with the word rate. He lost the ball 1 out of every 5 times. Like, if you think about that conceptually with how much actual point guard minutes he was playing, oh my God, he is losing the basketball all the time. And a lot of times it was healthy, ran through the wall and tried a bunch of stuff, and it was interesting. And sometimes he would just pass it to the wrong team because he was thinking a guy was going to go a different way. Whatever. He tries aggressive pick and roll passes that are sexy and cool and don't hit their mark. And then he also dribbles it off his foot all the time. And It's like, no, that is how you get 12 minutes a game versus 25 minutes a game. Losing the basketball. So it's that combined with all of the other non-shooting at the rim, like the non-3-point shooting metrics, right? So he actually shot it great at the rim, and he got fouled a lot at the rim. He's very good at drawing fouls and shooting well at the rim. He has to get all the way to the rim, and when he wasn't getting all the way to the rim, he was shooting. His floater game was one of the worst in the league. Not just 3-point shooting; it's all of your shooting metrics have to be quality if you're going to get 25 minutes a game. So when I'm thinking best case scenario, I actually don't think he's a 30% 3-point shooter this year. I think his best case scenario is he remains like a 75th percentile shooter at the rim. He gets to league average in floater range, and he keeps up the foul drawing, and he shoots better than 67% from the free throw line. He was awful in summer league at the free throw line, by the way. It was like ghastly performance at the free throw line in summer league, which is not a good indicator for a lot of things. But if you can draw a bunch of fouls and shoot 73, 74% from the free throw line and shoot fine everywhere else and stop dribbling it off your foot, like you reduce that turnover percentage to something like 16, 17%, now we're talking about a 20-minute a game player that has a 12-year NBA career that has an upward trajectory rather than, I don't know, man, you better start looking at European leagues.
Yeah. Yeah. And by the way, his free throw percentage in college was also 67%. So we now have a little bit of a sample here on free throw percentage, which is worrisome because, you alluded to it. Free throw percentage is generally a better predictor of future 3-point growth than 3-point percentages, right? Like they say that you got to shoot something like 750 threes before your percentage really means something. Whereas like you can look at a guy's historical free throw rate and that'll give you an indication of, touch and arc and whatever else. So, the 67% is kind of worrying, especially since it's been that way since college. I hate to disappoint you after not citing his 3-point rate as part of the worst case scenario. To me, that is a little bit the best case scenario. And you're right that it's not as simple as just pointing to one number. But I do think that there's just something about being like a 34% free throw shoot, a 3-point shooter as a ball handling guard. And particularly, I think one of the things that I pay a real close attention to with point guard shooting is off the bounce versus catch and shoot. Like Keontae George has had times where his off the bounce shooting was really, really, really bad. And that's meaningful because that's what tells teams whether or not they can go under on the screen when you have the ball in your hands. So I think that's going to be an important part of Isaiah kind of unlocking the next step, partially because it'll determine. And again, there's so many minutes and there's so many guards. Like that's what's going to determine if he can play off ball or not. Because if he can't play off ball, then there's less reason to put him on the court when Key or when Walter Clayton Jr. are handling the ball.
And just building off of that, when we think about, like, I know we're kind of congealing the best and worst case scenarios here, there's some real defensive dog in him, though. And I could see there being like, okay, if he's the non-shooting off-ball guard or whatever, and you don't have a lot of playmaking, so you're playing Keontae and Isaiah Collier together. Well, Collier becomes the best on-ball defender. Like Will Hardy's talked about it multiple times in training camp, media stuff and everything, and saying like the point of attack defense has got to be better than worse than 30th in the NBA. Like it was so bad, and Collier was a big culprit as part of that. But unlike Keontae, effort wasn't his problem. Like it was a lot of very stupid fouls, very much slamming into screens. But he's built like a rock. He cares a lot about defense. And even though he's kind of built that way, he does have a decent wingspan for maybe thinking about how he can use his skills. He's 6'3". He's not tiny. He's not big, but he's kind of like an average size point guard. I think he can do some things defensively where you're looking at what can I do at minute 8 of the third quarter. Yeah, we're really going to struggle with the shooting out there, but I can't have Clayton out there because he's defensively atrocious. Keontae has not improved. We got to have some sort of credible defense against this horrible opponent backup guard who is like Bub Carrington is killing us. Can somebody get out there and guard him? And it turns out to be Collier. So there are other ways I can see him getting the floor, even if he's still a 25% 3-point shooter.
Yeah, the encouraging thing about his rookie year is that when he played, he found ways to score despite not really being a quote unquote scorer. He's a strong-bodied driver. He's not a wiggly, creative finishing whatever. He just gets from point A to point B and makes defenders bounce off him because he's built like a truck. His 17 highest minute games, he had double doubles, points and assists in 9 of them. That's a good sign. That's a player saying like, hey, I'm pretty reliable when I get minutes. I think the question for him is just going to be, does he get minutes? It seems from, and like analyze analyze who's wearing what jerseys in the first week of camp at your own risk. But a lot of people seem convinced after seeing the Jazz in scrimmage and seeing the way that they've um, organized lineups in practice, like Keontae George might be getting the starting nod to start the season, which I'm fine with. I have thoughts on Keontae. I've said some of them. I'll say more of them when we get to the Keontae episode. Um, I but I think it's fine to give him another shot at holding that gig. It does just mean that Isaiah is going to play a lot of his minutes with some mix of like Cody Williams, not a shooter, not even really super duper productive as a rookie. He's going to play with some non-Walker Kessler big most of the time. He's going to play with Nurk or with Flip, who, like you said, isn't really a center. He's going to play with Kyle Anderson. He's going to play with this bench mob that won't necessarily accentuate his skill. But if Keontae's the starter, that means he and Walt Clayton Jr. will play some minutes together. That means they're going to be small, and that's going to present more defensive problems. So I am kind of curious to see, and I know I'm bleeding over into the lineup answer here. Like I know that they can't construct lineups based on what will engineer the best outcome for one for one late first round pick on their roster, but you could imagine a scenario where the lineups that he's playing in by function of what the Jazz decide to do with the starting five put him in a position that doesn't really accentuate a lot of his strengths, and it'll be again if the bench mob is, I don't know, like Nurk, Flip, Kyle Anderson, Cody Williams, Isaiah Collier, that's 3 non-shooters. And a rookie who you generally just don't expect a lot from. Wait, no, hold on. I said Cody instead of Walt Clayton Jr. Anyway, point stands, it'll just be interesting to see if his growth can offset the fact that right now he's a little bit of a, his production does depend on who he's on the floor with.
Yeah, I think the lineup question is very, very key for him, and I think if he's playing with, what I'm hoping to see is, okay, it's a Markkanen, Filipowski, Nurkic kind of pseudo front court there. Like, yeah, you don't want Nurkic shooting threes a whole lot if you're trying to win basketball games. But as he did for Bosnia and Herzegovina in Eurobasket, and as he shows you in every single Instagram workout tape, Yusuf Nurkic loves shooting threes, man. And if he gets a little bit of license to shoot some threes, like that little bench lineup, at least like he can drive, and maybe Nurkic isn't just like planted in under the basket all the time. Like there could be some little bit of space that Nurkic is giving Collier some room to operate. And Filipowski obviously is going to stretch the floor. At least defenses are going to react to Filipowski. Like, oh, that's there's the white guy from Duke who really crushed it in summer league. Like, obviously he's going to shoot a bunch of threes. He probably shoots 50% from beyond the arc. Like, the average NBA defense in the middle of January is not thinking about like the scouting report too intensely. And so that's the lineup I want to see is like, okay, is the floor inverted a little bit so that Isaiah Collier is able to maybe just dribble into the paint and do the things that he's good at, which is being in the paint. So last year, this is my prediction for him, and we'll move on to Brice Sensabaugh, is Isaiah Collier averaged 26 minutes a game last year and averaged 8.7 points per game. I think Isaiah Collier scores more than 10 points per game this year on fewer minutes per game. I think he actually is going to figure out lots of ways that he can impact fast break offense, drawing fouls. I think his free throw percentage is going to be, he only shot 2.2 free throw attempts per game last year. I think that's going to go up. I think he's going to find way more ways that he has figured out, like, no, I'm the fastest, strongest bulldog on the court right now. I'm going to get 11 points per game, which is actually a pretty cool step forward for him alongside of his passing game. And like the off the dribble threes and that sort of thing will come if he's mastering that sort of ways he can find points. It really bodes well for where he's going because I think he's got the passing vision down.
Yeah, I agree. I more than just passing vision, I think this is going to be one of those like vague words that people use to sound smart and only sometimes know what it means. But just like court awareness, like understanding what will happen if I dribble one more step this direction, or knowing that a guy should be cutting down this side so that I don't really have to look to see it's happening. So
Without
I
thinking about
agree.
it.
And
Without thinking about
right.
it. It's innate to what he understands of the shape of the basketball court. It really didn't congeal for me as kind of watching these games for decades now. Is it really congealed that thought of court awareness? I've always heard it as a platitude, as you said. It really congealed for me last year, as not just seeing guys like Jokic, but seeing how the B to C level operators, what they are able to do versus an F operator or a D operator. And Collier was a big part of that, is just seeing like why can't Keontae do what Collier does? And frankly, it's just like Keontae can see one or two players besides himself, and I think Collier can see all five.
Quick stat, and then we'll move on to Brice Sensabaugh. 6 Jazz rookies have ever had seasons with at least 10 double doubles. 6 Jazz rookies ever. 3 of them were in the 1980s or earlier, Malone, Eaton, and Griffin. The other 3 are all on this basketball team. Kessler did it as a rookie, Flip did it as a rookie, and Isaiah Collier had 11 double-doubles. Let's talk about Brice Sensabaugh. Brice Sensabaugh, I think, changed a lot of minds with his sophomore season. I think he is, he's someone who now we can say he has a bag. If we weren't sure he had a bag, dude was just a bucket in summer league, so much so that he just so quickly it became apparent that he had no business being in summer league at all. And that doesn't mean a whole ton because whatever, Ian Clark was once the MVP of the summer league, but it just validates that this is a guy who knows how to take that orange round thing and put it in the other round thing. I think Brice is primed to be kind of the new Jordan Clarkson, the guy who just has the greenest of green lights off the bench. Go create, go dribble the letters off of the basketball. It doesn't matter. Just go create shots for yourself, for other people, whatever. Most often it'll be for himself because he does sometimes get blinders on. No big deal. It happens. That's his role. I could picture a world, speaking of best case scenario, where he averages, 16, 17 points off the bench and is at least in the 6th man of the year conversation, although no one's going to really vote for him because he's going to be on a crappy team that wins, not a lot of games. A crappy team that I love, by the way. I don't mean that in a disparaging way. A team that I affectionately expect to lose more games than they win.
It's all based on the shots that went in the bucket for him last year. And there just is little, I know he was a rookie, but there was little tolerance for Jazz fans to watch a late first round rookie who has a little bit of pedigree, and we were all told, oh, he slipped in the draft for injury reasons. If he wasn't injured, he'd be a top 15 pick. So we kind of, having Sensabaugh come in as a rookie, you're thinking, show us the goods. And he had 0 goods. Right? 48% effective field goal percentage, that's atrocious. That's unacceptable, including 30% from 3, which is okay. So you're trying to live in the world of the mid-range, which he was an almost acceptable mid-range shooter. It's okay, man, it's not 2002 anymore. You're gonna have to be 30% from 3 is unacceptable, combined with 0 of the court awareness we just got done talking about, combined with just again that when you say bad defense, I've really been tested over the past couple years identifying when a player is just a bad defender from you're just running into screens and you're trying but you're lost out there, versus a guy who's not caring. You can identify the players not caring about defense, and I can't have a rookie out there not caring. This is your paycheck now. You have to care. And last year, you saw a lot more Brice Sensabaugh caring on defense. He's still an F-level defender, but it's not an F because of effort sometimes. I think he does have some effort issues occasionally still, but there are he would make some wow plays, like some sneaky brainy plays on defense, which was encouraging. And then all of a sudden, it goes from 30% to 43% from three. He just said, okay, I know how to shoot the basketball. Where do I shoot? And if you look at his little like shot zones from his rookie season to his second season, he's got all these games where he was in his rookie season where he's just shooting all around that like 2002 mid-range area.
Oh, I got numbers. You want numbers?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to get to. Is like all of a sudden he extricated those out and he became a 3-point volume guy.
Rookie season, 18.4% of his field goal attempts were twos outside of 10 feet. Last season, that was down to 13.2%.
And that's probably going to go down even further. Like, I think that's where it can go. And that's where all of a sudden your head starts to turn is like, are you a 43% shooter? I don't know if that'll persist. But to maintain his volume of 3-point shooting combined with the accuracy on a team this bad, that's it's never going to go worse than 40%. Maybe it'll be 39%, right? But in that sort of a team construct, him able to do that volume and accuracy combo says that's a permanent fix to your game. And that is, I've never had more of a whiplash. Brice Sensabaugh has changed from his beginning season to his second season. It gives me a lot of pause on my initial thoughts about Cody Williams, right? But I think Brice Sensabaugh also has the approach of like, there are things that he knows he needs to do well in the NBA. He's talked about defense. He talked about it in Media Day. We mentioned that as like a quote that I liked hearing is that there are things he's going to do to not just play in the NBA for 12 years, but there's a world where he makes 9 figures of money if he does more things appropriately. And I think my best case scenario is like, let's get it 43% from three again. Invited to the 3-point contest alongside Lauri Markkanen or something like that, where it's like something kind of cool. And a player where I think Brice Sensabaugh, this is what I want to say about his best case scenario is we talk about, okay, what does a closing lineup look like? Do you need defense? Do you need offense? Brice Sensabaugh's best case scenario, you want to talk about stats and what the shooting numbers look like. I think it's more about, is he an unquestioned member of the closing lineup on a game you're trying to win? Where it's like, we'll figure out, like maybe we don't need a capital P point guard for the last minute of this game where we're going to be timeouts and it's all ATOs, plays or whatever. Like Brice Sensabaugh needs to be on the floor because he's going to completely warp the defense. And if we need something, if the play breaks down, give it to Brice. He's going to shoot it way more accurately than a Keontae or a Walt Clayton. He needs to be on the floor, even over Ace Bailey, perhaps, right? Like that's, I think, a very successful season for him and will make other teams around the league go, wait a second. Should we stop calling them about Lauri Markkanen and start calling them about Brice Sensabaugh? He could actually help our playoff rotation. That's where I think the next step of his is not just numbers on a bad team, but impactful closing lineup player.
Yeah, he averaged 11 last year, and that was on 20 minutes a game, 8 shots a game. I think both those numbers are probably going up this coming season. But, because they have a Clarkson-shaped gap and a Sexton-shaped gap to fill as just guys who will score with the ball in their hands. So, and that was also with, an improved but still not ideal shot diet. And his free throw rate actually got worse in his second year from his first. So I guess what I'm saying is I don't even think Brice Sensabaugh has to get a lot better as a player to for us to wake up at the All-Star break and he's averaging 14. So really just marginal improvements, like improvements around the edges, like getting fouled more and stuff like that could be the difference between, 14 and 17 or 15 and, I don't know. So I think Brice is going to score a crap load of points. I'm with you that to me, the measurement of how long he's in the league and how significant he is in the league and how much money he makes in the league comes down to all that other stuff. The way Will Hardy likes to put it is he wants Brice to be a basketball player. He knows Brice can be a scorer. In fact, to Will Hardy's credit, he said this even during Brice's uneven rookie season, he would say, I know he can be a scorer in this league. I don't have to question that. The shot making will come. What I don't know is, can he rebound? Can he defend? Can he make the right reads? Can he play off the ball? Can he use a screen? Can he know when to not use a screen? Can he, if the guy's top blocking, can he go the other direction and create something for someone else because he cleared a defender out of that space? All of those things are things that I think are less instinctual for Brice. But if they come, then yeah, he could like, this is a guy who legitimately will be in sixth man races at some point in his career if he works on those little things. The worst case scenario.
It's just if he doesn't do those things, right? Like,
Yeah,
because
that's
he's
exactly
going to get
right.
minutes because he has to on this team, so he's going to score. We know his 3-point shooting is probably default. To your point, it's if he doesn't do all those other things, we're really questioning. I mean, I don't know if he's played himself into I'm going to get an extension, right? Like after a little while, but like you'd like to see if you can sneak a little bit of an affordable extension out of him, maybe. But if he doesn't do those things, then you're just like, all right, man, see you in your fourth year. And then we'll have a contentious restricted free agency. Well, we're off you not very much and figure it out from there.
By the way, how wild is it that we're already at the point where Taylor Hendricks, who's played like 44 NBA games, and Keontae George and Brice Sensabaugh are going to be negotiating rookie contract extensions next summer?
The chances that any of them get done next summer?
I'm not even talking about chances. I'm just saying, like, that's how fast life comes at you, bro.
Yeah, and that's we'll talk when there's something I want to mention with the Lowry marketing conversation is tomorrow about like how fast life is happening, and I think when we talk about Brice Sensabaugh best and worst case scenario, it's the reason I get so excited about keeping Lowry is there are ways that so many of these players can have not just capital B best case scenarios, but just simply get better on the things they already have. And all of a sudden the Jazz have 9 rotation players and 6 players that could credibly close a game. That's a 42-win team if Brice Sensabaugh is just a little bit better, right? Like all these players can make marginal improvements that are not crazy to think about. But you have to be prepared for, hey, that player didn't actually improve on some of the things that'll keep you on the lineup for all 30 teams, not just the paltry Utah Jazz. So I interrupted you on the point you were making just because I thought it was a natural transition from like Will Hardy's comments about everything else Brice can do. Yeah, he needs to do those other things.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. I think that's spot on. I also think, his free throw rate needs to be better. His free throw rate was 18% and then 12% in his second year. Like that, it needs to be going the other direction. Put another way, he went per 36 minutes. He went to the line 1.8 times. Just not good enough if you want to be like known for being a, if your NBA calling card is I've got a scorer's knack and you can just always put the ball in my hands and get something good to happen, you need to go to the line more often than that.
Yeah, I can see it kind of being like, okay, his focus last year, because his assists per game went down last year, even though he played more minutes, right? So I wonder if it was like, okay, last year he's focusing on, I need to shoot or move, and I need to always kind of be in a position to, when I catch the ball, I'm ready to fire it up, and I'm going to shoot 40% from 3, and that's going to be how I'm going to get my points this year. But that came at a development penalty of learning how to dribble into the paint and deliver a basketball or draw a foul in the paint, because that wasn't what he was asked to do or was working on, perhaps. I mean, I know these guys are working on everything all the time, but he was having so much success with shooting that I think it possibly came, and he's playing with other players who are dribbling the basketball a lot, that it came at a price of the other development curve. So now that he's got the shooting thing down, do we see more of like second unit Brice Sensabaugh, like actually getting back to his old Ohio State ways, drawing some fouls and that sort of thing? I'm encouraged. It's possible.
Do you have any spicy Brice Sensabaugh predictions for me before we move on to a couple of bets?
Not really. I think just the lineups I want to see is just what I mentioned about the closing lineup is I want to see situations where on various ATOs, or not even just closing lineup, but out of various ATOs, I am so worried, Dan, about the lack of quality point guard play on this team that I am curious if Brice Sensabaugh plays the ostensible point guard on some sort of closing lineup where, no, you're not asked to run pick and roll with some player to get a bucket. It's more, we have a couple plays that this 5-man unit can run, and it depends on Brice Sensabaugh doing a couple intelligent decisions with the basketball. Not full court awareness, you're the point guard guy, but you are the facilitator at this portion of the game, and that's kind of the situation I want to see with. So that lineup to me would be Brice Sensabaugh, Ace Bailey, some sort of Taylor Hendricks combination with Markkanen and Kessler.
I thought that it was going to say that Brice Sensabaugh ran more possessions as a pick and roll ball handler last year than he did. He was pretty average at it, and it was only 14.7% of his possessions. I thought those numbers would both be higher, but hey, that's why you look at stats.
It's also not zero though. Like that's
true.
That's more than I thought, actually.
And for me on the lineup front, I think understanding that Brice is most likely going to be the designated hitter off the bench. I'm focused on what are some bench lineups. You could construct a bench lineup full of good shooters if you wanted to. Now this means not playing Cody as much, not playing Isaiah Collier as much, but if you wanted to just see what happens if you put 5 guys who have the capability of shooting 38% or better on the floor at the same time, you could do Walt Clayton, Brice Sensabaugh, George Niang, Taylor Hendricks, and Flip. And not that makes a ton of sense positionally because you've really got 3 power forwards and no center, but that would be the kind of the type of lineup I'd be interested to see Brice operate in.
And then you have some credible shot blocking still though with Taylor Hendricks out there, and
Sure.
You're not relying on George Niang to do anything but stand around and shoot the basketball. So if Brice Sensabaugh and Walt Clayton are doing a little bit more of your dribble drive attitude, and Brice and Niang is just kind of being on the periphery, and Kyle Filipowski defensively as a center is just doing enough asshole things to be not run over, then that's a fun lineup.
People forget that Taylor Hendricks was a 38% three-point shooter in his rookie season. That's pretty exciting with his other skill set. I mean, it was all catch and shoot, but that's okay. That's what you want out of him.
Yeah.
So Brice is interesting, and precisely because Brice is interesting, this next guy we're going to talk about is someone I hope we're not talking about a lot in 3 or 4 months. Kyle Anderson, for me, probably even more so than Nurk or Kevin Love or George Niang or whoever, just positionally, slow-mo plays a position and a brand of basketball that I kind of hope he's not super duper in other guys' way over the course of the season. I think the Jazz probably kept him because nothing materialized transactionally, and it's actually kind of useful to go into the season with checking my notes here, a $9.2 million salary that you can stick into trades. So I mean, honestly, and this is going to sound rude, I don't mean this to sound that way. Honestly, one of the best case scenarios for Kyle Anderson as it relates to the 2025-2026 Jazz is that the Jazz find a way to use that $9.2 million. But yeah, I kind of, again, due respect to the guy because he's a pro's pro and he's helped a lot of teams. I just don't see a lot of need for him on a team that has other guys who are, guards and or really big ball handling wings. That's kind of what he is. But I don't know. We talked about it a little bit before, and I think you see more usefulness there than maybe I do.
Well, I think the way you just framed it is interesting to me. Is what the best case scenario for Kyle Anderson's season. I think I agree with you. the best possible Kyle Anderson season means that bad things happen elsewhere for the Jazz. Like that he's playing over significant other guys, even though it's like this is a guy that should not be playing. And that is that is also how I would frame it, is because like I am worried. I just mentioned this in the sense of Brice Sensabaugh. I'm worried that we're going to have so many stretches of games where no one has the advanced ideas on a given night. And for as slow as he is, and I know he's not a point guard, you're not asking him to be Mr. Distributor guy. And as you accurately mentioned before the show, like it's been a long time since he was in like a actual like we're gonna rely on you for
like
backup.
5 assists per game, right. 4 assists per game kind of role.
But this has been in his DNA since UCLA. Is like this, you're a weird tall guy who can kind of operate in many different passing formats. And that's where I care so much about the success of players like Ace Bailey and Taylor Hendricks that I don't want a bad Keontae season or a bad Collier season. And of course, Walt, he's rookie, he's not going to be ready yet, to be derailed by it. To derail the Ace Bailey, Taylor Hendricks positive development curves that we're seeing, or Brice Sensabaugh. And if there needs to just be an adult on the floor, I'd rather it be Kyle Anderson than Yusuf Nurkic. I'd rather it be Kyle Anderson than Kevin Love. I'd rather it be Kyle Anderson than George Niang in a lot of contexts. Like, because I think that's the little bit of a passing acumen that I care about offensively, and I don't care about his like what he can do as an individual defender, but I also think like putting guys in the right spot defensively. Like he's played on some amazing defensive teams where he knows what, maybe not what he should be doing because he's now old and bad, but if he can drag Ace Bailey over and say like, no, you got to stand here if we're guarding this sort of like that sort of like on floor defensive coach, because the best. Typically your on-floor defensive coach is going to be your big man. Walker Kessler's pretty good at that. He's going to play 30 minutes a night. Yusuf Nurkic, not really known as like a positive, good old defensive communicator type. So I'm wondering, like, is there a world where the Jazz, every lineup that they play is better with Kyle Anderson on the floor? But like you, I'm hoping it doesn't come to that. I'm hoping he isn't on the floor. I just think that's his personal best case scenario where all the other teams are looking at him being like, you know what, we could use you as our 14th man. We will do a trade with Utah to get your $9 million salary matching. And guess what? You're probably not the worst 14th man to have on our title run. You're not going to play, but maybe we need you in an emergency, whatever. He's not done. He's not completely cooked like the next guy we'll talk about. And the inverse of like what is a worst case scenario is like, he plays 20 minutes a game. So it's like I could see and this is what I think is a lot of mystery for Jazz fans right now. And I don't, neither of us I think have a lot of insight into this. I have no idea what Will Hardy's plans are for him. I think Jazz fans have to be prepared. They're going to be so mad about this. I will be mad. You'll be mad. We just said we're going to be mad. We all have to be prepared for game 1, 23 minutes of Kyle Anderson. Like, I think it's very credible on game 1 that he is playing a lot and a lot early, at least until development takes a little bit more of a forefront.
I mean, there's a non-zero chance this guy starts.
Yes, that's kind of what I'm getting at. Is I don't think that this guy is immediately buried.
Starts a non-trivial amount of games. I don't mean that he'll be a regular starter all season long. At least I hope not. But yeah. I mean, there's a chance of that, and I guess what I'm saying, you and I agree on so much. When you say you'd rather him be the grown up in the room than all those other guys, I guess what I'm saying is I sort of disagree.
You're allowed to do that. We're allowed to do that.
If you're putting if it's bench minutes time. And you've got Isaiah Collier in the corner as the quote-unquote spacer while Kyle Anderson is in the middle of the floor running pick and roll. To me, that's like coach crack cocaine. That's like a coach being like, I just need a possession to work. I just need to show these guys what a possession looks like that works. So, but there's nothing like redeeming about that in a long-term sense. Kyle Anderson is he's 32. People forget that like last year he didn't play that much, right? Like he had a pretty significant role for Minnesota. 28 minutes a game, then the next season 22 minutes a game, but he was in almost every game. And then last year he was in Golden State and Miami and never really taught. Like he did 15 minutes a game in a partial season with Golden State, bunch of DNPs, then went to Miami, 18 minutes a game with Miami, bunch of DNPs. I don't think this guy is like not automatic, because I know no one, I don't mean to like straw man this. No one's saying he's automatic or that he's, I just think even the degree to which he's like hey, everyone go watch how Kyle Anderson does it might be kind of overblown at this stage in his career. That's not to say he's washed. I agree with you.
He's absolutely washed. I think it's more, does he have a role on a team as bad as Utah? That's the quibble here and the mystery.
So anyway, for all those reasons, I think I would rather see, Kevin Love kind of hanging out on the fringes of the rotation than him. I would rather see this. This I know is going to piss you off, Mark Pereira. I would rather see Svi Mikhailuk running pick and rolls off the bench for the Utah Jazz, because Svi is at least, and we'll talk about Svi when we talk about Svi, and you'll be mad if I take more than 20 seconds to do so. But like Svi, mostly when Will Hardy has used him, it's been to kind of be a de facto point guard and organize the team a little bit. So both of them are like these guys who are like 6'7", but they can handle and make decisions and whatever. So anyway, that I would be fine. I'm mentally preparing myself for he'll start some games, he'll play a lot in some other games, but I think positionally he is a type of player who more important, more intriguing, more fun players could take those minutes. And again, I understand why coaches play Kyle Anderson type of players. It's crack. It's addictive to just be like, I just want a guy I can rely on to like remember what was on the clipboard when they leave this huddle. And Kyle Anderson will do that.
I think that is actually, I think that's important. And maybe I like the crack cocaine a little bit too much. That's a clippable element of this podcast now. But I believe in that for if you need four players to be on the same page. Like if Lauri Markkanen isn't playing, right, and it's like it just needed four out there that's going to put guys in the right spot. The story on him over the past, especially last year, the Golden State Miami, is like he is absolutely now one of the worst defenders in the league. Like you can't stay in front of he couldn't stay in front of like a guy like a slow player like a Filipowski type. Although Filipowski's a little underrated on that point. But he can't even do that stuff anymore. So it's more if he's out there defensively, it's a problem. Unless you just need him, unless he's somehow a better defender because he at least knows where to stand on the court. And so if people aren't familiar with his game, be prepared to see a three-pointer that can be measured with a sundial. I did not invent that joke, but it's still my favorite thing. And he will make weird, crafty passes. And he is, if George Niang is the minivan, he is the scrapyard Volkswagen bus. So should we talk about the last guy that you're pretty ambivalent towards? I'm like, okay, if Kevin Love, who's probably a Hall of Famer, wants to come spend his twilight mentoring some guys in Utah, that's kind of fun to me. Yeah, what's your thought on Kevin Love? And I know we're not going to spend 20 minutes talking about Kevin Love, so let's spend 4 minutes talking about him and give the people some good Kevin Love content. Well, if you want some more Kevin Love content, we actually did talk about quite a bit about him during Media Day. And why the hell is he still here, right? Why wasn't he bought out? What conversations did he have? What kind of role is he trying to take with this team? Because, yeah, someone like him who already knows what it's like to win a championship, man, if you're trying to get a paycheck somewhere, like you probably can find a 15th man role somewhere, couldn't you? Well, it turns out he couldn't. So he's got this paycheck that he's going to get from the Utah Jazz, and because this is probably his last year playing in the NBA, He's not going to take the Al Horford Oklahoma City Thunder route where it's just like, oh, just put me on ice and I won't play. No, it's like, okay, the Jazz management and Will Hardy went to him and said, we have a need for you. We value your presence here, and it's not like the Jazz have a shitload of front court players. Like there's a world where okay, Yusuf Nurkic is not the healthiest guy, and Walker Kessler can't play at 48 minutes a game, and Kyle Filipowski, God bless him, he's just not a five. He can't play the five, although he's taller than Kevin Love. I think they could credibly go to Kevin Love and say, "You're probably going to play 20 games this year. You're going to play like, and probably for a week or two, you might play a lot." Have some fun, man. Like play some basketball and enjoy it. So I think the best case scenario is he unlocks Kyle Filipowski. He is someone who like this is how you win in the NBA. Kevin Love comes from a little bit higher pedigree than Filipowski. He was already a rebounding maven when he as from minute one. So Filipowski is not Kevin Love. They're not. You can't just say like undersized white guy forward type. Okay, like let's figure out how they can match. But I think Kevin Love was able to survive as the only five on the court. Like he played a lot with Tristan Thompson, of course, and he played with some center types in Minnesota as well. But there were a lot of times in Cleveland where he was relied on to be the only five on the court. And how was he able to do that? I'd like him to teach Filipowski that.
Yeah, I've said it before. I think it's hard to think of a better person for Filipowski to kind of not emulate, because again, we're talking about a 7-time All-Star? I just had it up. 5-time All-Star, 2-time All-NBA. So I don't mean to get too lofty here and be like, oh yeah, Kyle, just if you wouldn't mind, go get 5 All-Star appearances. I'm not saying that. But stylistically, I think if you're talking about someone who, to play that style of game as a stretch 4, sometimes 5, whatever, really committed to rebounding during the peak of his career, a little bit less so as he started to stretch his game out to the perimeter on the offensive side. I think that's a really good model for Flip. And that's one of the reasons I'm not mad he's still on this basketball team. 4.1 million is the salary. Again, if any team had offered him a fully guaranteed minimum contract, he would have come to the Jazz and said, hey, they want me at the minimum. Would you guys mind? And the Jazz would have let him go. I mean, not let him go. The Jazz would have, taken the discount and cashed in the savings and let him not report. That clearly didn't happen. That doesn't mean it won't ever happen. Teams' needs change as guys get injured, guys underperform, things don't work out the way they think. Like remember how we all thought that Jeff Green was a perfect acquisition for the Jazz and Ed Davis was a perfect acquisition for the Jazz?
They matched exactly. I know this is derailing. I don't know how Utah whiffed so much on the Ed Davis and Jeff Green and Rudy Gay. We just whiffed and whiffed and whiffed. Oh, I can't stop thinking about it.
I remember the Rudy Gay summer writing a thing saying, here's what the Jazz need. They need one more big body, and it needs to be someone who can kind of theoretically defend, and it needs to be someone who can hit open shots on the perimeter. And there's only a certain number of guys in that size range that have these statistical markers. And so, they need to sign one of these 4 guys, and one of my names was Rudy Gay. And so when they got Rudy Gay, I was like, mission of freaking accomplished. They did exactly what they needed to do to shore up one weakness, and then he just didn't work out. And Jeff Green just didn't work out. And Ed Davis was like unplayably bad at that point in his career, 1 year after being arguably the best backup center in the NBA. So anyway, I'm on a digression, a victim mentality thing.
It's my fault.
Point is, yeah, that's okay. That's okay.
I also didn't realize Kevin
Let
Love.
her rip Kevin Love is, I guess, the point I was making.
Yeah, the ideal lineup for Kevin Love is alongside the coaching staff on the end of the bench. And just a fun little Kevin Love thing. I didn't realize he won Most Improved Player in his 3rd season. That is not an award I knew he had in his cabinet. And I was sitting there being like, I knew he started at some point when I was saying like, okay, what centers has he played with, and one of them being Tristan Thompson. I couldn't remember the centers he played with in Minnesota.
Peck.
And then I was embarrassed. I realized like as you were talking like, oh no, Nikola Pekovic, but that wasn't from like his rookie season. Who did he play with before that? And it was Darko. Darko was the starting center in his second season. That's why, and I think Brad Miller was on the end of his career there too. But I was like, who?
He started next to Al Jefferson a bunch of games too as a rookie.
Oh, that's right. Before the Jazz got Al Jefferson. Okay. So he's played with an eclectic amount of non-defending centers.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God. Yeah. He's never played next to a shot blocking center in his career. Maybe we should play him alongside Walker and see how he likes it. That will be a disaster.
Yeah, but I'm just firmly in the camp that like Kevin Love closing out a Hall of Fame career in Utah is just kind of weirdly fun.
Yeah.
That's about the sum total of my Kevin Love opinions.
Totally fine. And if he's out there for the 20 games that he has to play, I just hope his 3-point shooting he still has it, so that if he's out there for spacing reasons, it's not mucking up everything else. Like, I know he can't defend and he can't do things on the interior anymore, but if he's out there, I'm hoping the 3-point shooting is credible to help everyone else on the floor. And that's an actual, honest, earnest Kevin Love thought, and I'm done thinking about Kevin Love until tomorrow when we have a preseason game that he will not be playing in. So I will not be thinking about him tomorrow either.
Hey, have you seen the injured list? I mean, I wouldn't rule it out.
Yeah, we have no front court players currently, so all of a sudden it's well, we can we use the training camp guys in preseason?
Well, except that they waived 2 of them. So,
but
the answer is yes. There are actually precious few rules about preseason games, but yeah, they Kroll and Matthew Murrell. Did they sign new guys? Maybe they signed new guys.
So they signed new guys, but one of them is Asmus, the little jitterbug scorer type. Yeah. I don't know who the second one they hired.
He might play center tomorrow. We'll see.
All due respect to Max Asmus, one of my least favorite summer league watches of all time. I don't know why they brought him back for a G League deal, but that's not why. People are not here to listen to my Max Asmus thoughts. Although he had the incredible March Madness run for Oral Roberts, don't forget. Okay, that's enough. I have no natural conclusion. We'll talk about more players another time.
Yeah, that's the conclusion. Yeah, there's still some really interesting Jazz players left. So come back. We'll do this some more. We've saved some interesting names. We've saved some other names too. Mark can't wait to hear me do like 5 minutes on why Svi Mikhailuk playing isn't a bad thing. But I promise we'll talk about like Keontae George, and we'll talk about Lauri Markkanen, and we'll talk about the return of Taylor Hendricks to a basketball floor. All really exciting
We're
stuff.
Going to have 30 minutes on Taylor Hendricks. I'm as amped for him. I'm nearly as amped for him as I am for Ace Bailey. I'm very excited to talk about him and what he could be. I think his attitude is awesome. I think he looks amazing. And I think some of the players that we're going to talk about later, I think is more helpful to get preseason thoughts on. Right? Like Ace Bailey, I kind of want to talk about him as a mystery before we see more substantive things from him. But I kind of do want to see how Hendricks looks moving around before I make any sort of proclamations about him. So the stuff we'll talk about later, we'll talk about in the lens of some of the preseason action we'll see.
All right, sounds good. Well, that's Mark Pereira over there. He is a Salt City Hoops writer and podcaster extraordinaire. I'm Dan Clayton, also of Salt City Hoops. This has been a Salt City Hoops podcast, and there's going to be a lot more of said podcasts in your near future if you like such things. So thank you for spending a little bit of time with us, and we'll talk to you soon.